What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. Today we're talking about more on the Toronto Maple Leafs and their offseason that is pending now. They are finally on the clock to do something. And, obviously we wish the season didn't end as it did, but the Leafs were eliminated in the first round, as we know. So if you guys are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe, join the squad. I'd love to have you guys here. I know there's a ton of you guys watching that aren't subscribed, and that will help. Hey, and if you don't want to subscribe, just like this video. It does help me quite a bit. But we are going to go through so much in this video regarding the offseason. And when I tell you guys that I almost feel pressured because there's like 70 videos that I want to make right now, I'm feeling it because there's a lot of things I need to say, and I'm sure you guys do as well. So sound off in the comments. I read the comments, and it might be a video that I make soon. So there's a thread here by Leafs fan 1634, and this is coming from the 32 Thoughts podcast from Elliot Freeman and Merrick. And look, this is the thing. There's a lot in here. So I'm going to touch on a few things, and we're going to talk about trades. We're going to talk about free agent signings. We're going to talk about everything in here. So bear with me. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on a lot of what's said here. So basically, he starts off saying that there's going to be changes, and the biggest question is how deep they'll go with those changes and what is the timeline of it. So the first thing Elliot Freeman mentions is that the idea of having $40 million tied up in 4 forwards, those days are over. Elliot Freeman continues, they might have to bear with it for one more year, but overall that philosophy is done. No one wants to hear about moral victories anymore. Now, here's what I find interesting. So the 4 forwards making so much money thing is already coming to a close because the contracts are ending after this season. John Tavares is not going to be making nearly even remotely close to what he's making on his next contract. And Mitch Marner more than likely is a guy that could get dealt this offseason. So there's a lot of people out there saying, oh yeah, well they won't tie that money into forwards. They're not going to have 4 $10 million guys, blah, blah, blah. Here's what I'll say regarding this point. And again, I could make a whole video on this. Try to start to see the trend of what's going to happen over the next couple years. You guys got to remember the salary cap went up to $87.7 million this year. And when the salary cap goes up, the contracts go up, the average annual value. So just there's going to be a lot of players that make a lot more than what you're expecting. And there's more than likely in the next few years that the Leafs will have another player that makes over $10 million added to this team, because in order to get guys that are that good, you got to pay them. And sure, do I think that this worked out the way it was supposed to? Obviously not. The Leafs are out on round 1 again. But this whole philosophy of you can't make it work, it's not just those 4 guys. It's the whole team that they have to figure out. So that I'm not really fully in agreement with. Now, Elliot Freeman gets the sense Keefe will get another opportunity in the league if he's fired by Toronto. Elliot Freeman brings up that in the summer of 23, the Leafs management discussed who could replace Keefe before ultimately extending him for another year. And apparently they might consider somebody like Craig Berube. And there's also some heat on Brendan Shanahan right now. And Keith Pelly will have to make a decision on that. We'll have to see if Shanahan is fired. So we'll have to just briefly talk about these two things as well, because again, this could be its own whole video. Shanahan and I almost said Dubas. Shanahan and Keefe, in my opinion, should both be let go. I would fire both of them. Shanahan, since coming in, has made great progress. Like, let's be real here, guys. He's made great progress. Just like I said, Dubas made great progress as well. You have to consider some of the things that they've done, okay? Not all of it's good. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of bad. But they also were working during the COVID times for a few of those years, so I do respect them for that, but they've made a lot of mistakes. And Brendan Shanahan deserves to take some of the heat for that as well. He makes a lot of those decisions. He's vetoed trades. He's vetoed signings. So Shanahan should be going. The Shana plan is officially over. Now, in terms of the head coach, I like Sheldon Keefe. He's been out-coached too many times. It's time to move on from him as well. They need to clean house. I've said this offseason is time for the Leafs to actually, grow some, if you know what I mean. They got to make some big changes here, and I think Shanahan and Keefe will ultimately both get fired. Now, Elliot Freeman brought up Mitch Marner, and this is going to be a huge topic of discussion for me going forward. Yes, he has control over the situation with his no-move clause, but I think there's a couple of questions here. One, how does he feel? Has he gotten to a point where he thinks long-term it's better for him to be somewhere else? he was nervous during these playoffs. Marner never really had a moment, and now because of where we are in the calendar of his contract, that becomes white hot under the microscope. Does any part of him think it's time? I do think it's possible he will think about it, waiving his no movement clause. It doesn't mean he tells the Leafs, get me out of here, but I do think at least there will be a Marner collective, as in the people around decide if it's better to go somewhere else. Now, I personally don't see Marner waiving his no move clause, and I know a lot of Leaf fans are going to be upset about this because I think a lot of people do believe it's time to move on from him and see if they can make another move, maybe bring in a defenseman and a starting goaltender, try to get a good package for him. But Marner just said in an interview that he would love to stay here long term and that he doesn't want to go anywhere, which means he's more than likely not waiving his no move clause unless the team presents him with an opportunity and he wants to sign an extension, which is available starting July 1st. I just don't know how the Leafs hold on to Marner. The only problem that I have is that if the Maple Leafs aren't negotiating a contract with him and Mitch thinks, well, I'll just stick it to them and doesn't waive his no move clause, Marner will just walk as a free agent. The Leafs will only acquire cap space when you should be getting major assets for Mitch Marner. So if they do decide to trade him, if he waives his no move clause, it's going to have to be for a pretty lengthy and big package, in my opinion. They have to win that trade as best as possible. But I don't know. I'm excited to see what they do, but at the same time, I just don't really know how they can go out there and get any better if they don't trade one of these guys from the core four. And it makes the most sense to remove Marner at this point. Now, he talks a little bit here about some other people, including Ilya Samsonov, talking about making decisions in goal. Now, he wonders if Samsonov does feel, might decide to go somewhere else after how this season went. He also talked about Fraser Minton and Easton Cowan and talking about Jake McCabe. So just real brief on all three of those things. First of all, I don't think it matters how Samsonov feels, and I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings by saying this. I like Samsonov, and I like Joseph Woll. I don't want either of them as the starting goaltender for this team. Now, and I've said this before, and people got pissed off at me. Joseph Woll gets injured way too often, and it dates back to his days in the ECHL, or not ECHL. I can't remember the league before he played in the AHL. I'm not sure if it was the ECHL, but he got hurt multiple times in the AHL. It took him out for an entire year, multiple occasions. He's gotten injured multiple times with the Maple Leafs. He can't stay healthy. You can't trust that guy to be a number one. If he's a backup, I would feel okay about it. But I think the Leafs need to go out there and really get a solidified starting goaltender because I don't think Samsonov or Woll are fit for the job. Cowan and Minton, they have to make this team next year. I don't think Cowan can play in the OHL again next year because he can't play in the AHL because of the rule, that's really stupid rule that they have. So it's either he stays in London, which it's just too easy for him, or he makes the Leafs. And I think that he's going to make the Maple Leafs. I don't know why they would send him back to the OHL. And the Leafs were already impressed with Minton. But again, if a new coach comes in and he doesn't like either of them, they'll both be sent to the minors. Jake McCabe, listen, he was fantastic. This guy needs to stick around. They need to give him another 3 or 4 years. So if they can extend him, I would be all for it. I think he's got 1 more year left on his deal. Then an extension can happen. So get that man signed. He was fantastic for this team. Now, the other thing here, there's a few more notes. TJ Brody, Mark Giordano, I think both of those guys are probably gone. Domi staying would be good. Edmondson and Bertuzzi I would keep for the right price. And then they're also talking about maybe Tavares being bought out. I wouldn't even bother to mention those things. Look, I want Domi to stick around too. Him and Matthews has had some really good chemistry. I think that it makes a ton of sense for Domi to stick around. He was one of the better forwards for the team this year. If I could pull up the stats here really quickly, like look at Domi here, 47 points in 80 games. He had 38 assists, 9 goals. He was right there after the top echelon of players on this team. Like, people say it's the big four, but really it is the big five because Morgan Rielly is definitely in that conversation. I mean, the guy almost had as many points as John Tavares in 8 less games. So this is a guy that needs to stick around. I want Bertuzzi to stick around as well, but it's just gonna it's going to depend on the price, right? Edmondson, I think that he was a little less physical than I wanted him to be in the playoffs. I know he threw some nice hits, but I wanted him to play a little bit more edgier. We just didn't see it. So if he stays, I'll be happy. If he doesn't, I don't care either, to be completely honest with you. Now, they're talking again about Nylander and trade talk. I'm going to make a video on this as I'm going to go more in depth on the Marner stuff as well. I don't think they're going to trade Nylander. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. Bertuzzi, again, I'll also go in depth on that in another video, so make sure to stick around. Subscribe. Trust me, guys. There's lots of videos coming, but it seems like Bertuzzi really enjoyed playing with Toronto, so he'll stick around. Same thing with Domi. I think both of them could. Now, this right here is going to be a teaser for one of my next videos. Elliot Friedman said he's spitballing here. Wonders about Seth Jones and the Blackhawks. Wonder if the Toronto would go after him in a potential Marner trade. I'll never watch hockey again if Mitch Marner gets traded for Seth Jones. I know some people are like, oh, he'll be better on another team. Seth Jones is not the guy the Leafs need to go after. He's too expensive. He doesn't play the way that the Leafs need. He hasn't been good. I'm not taking a flyer on him. Go out there and get somebody that's solidified as a really good defenseman. I know how bad Chicago is, but I don't want any of those bad habits coming to Toronto. We'll make a whole video on this because I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand where he's coming from there. But I want to show you guys again before we get into the next videos that we make on this channel. This is what the Leafs are looking like currently. While I do feel like some of this money is going to come out, especially with a Marner trade, you're looking at mega cap space. If you look at a Yarncroke or a Kampf trade, that's going to give you a little bit more breathing room. I think they're going to look at potentially getting rid of Ryan Reeves. There's a lot of decisions to make here. The blue line needs work, goaltender needs work, and this forward group needs another really nice piece to solidify this roster. And I know Bertuzzi and Domi could take up two of these spots. That's why I'm okay with losing a guy like a Kampf or maybe a Yarncroke or a Reeves, because you're going to have guys like Bobby McMahon and Fraser Minton and Easton Cowan potentially taking spots as well. So really, really intriguing offseason coming up. Hopefully you guys will stick around here and have some fun, and comment down below. I want to hear your comments. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Join the squad. I'd love to have you guys here. Again, just liking this video helps a ton. Helps. It does. We're going to talk all off season. We're going to do live streams. We're going to be talking Leafs here. So make sure to stick around. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Go Leafs go. Peace.